Hey folks, I hope you guys are well and staying as relaxed as humanly possible under the circumstances. Oh, I just want to repeat what I mentioned in the last episode about stress management tools, and it's this. There are some free apps for Apple and Android that contain meditation exercises, guided imagery, and relaxation audios. I find that for myself, they really do help. There's one of them called the Calm app, and it's things like running water. YouTube also has many videos to choose from. I'll add a few links for some of those in the show notes. This week, I thought I'd bring back an episode from last year about how you might put the Mediterranean diet theory into practice. The principle of the Mediterranean diet is to build our dinner plate based on seasonal produce, healthy grains, and smaller amounts of meat, chicken, and fish. And they generally eat very little empty calories or junk food. And I think one of the most important tricks to eating healthier, it seems for the Mediterraneans, is to enjoy what we are eating. So enjoy this episode, and at the end of the episode, I'll mention some recipes that you can alter to make them more Mediterranean. As always, feel free to contact me on my website contact page, and my website is healingoutsidethebox.com. Right now, I'm also offering online health and wellness coaching, and you can find that on my services page, which is again on my website, healingoutsidethebox.com. So on to the episode. Hello, everyone. This is Jean Tiberio, and I'm a nutritionist and a wellness coach. Welcome to Healing Outside the Box. You're listening to episode 208, and I'm calling it Putting the Mediterranean Diet Theory into Practice. Now, I've been flapping my gums for almost 5 years doing this podcast thing, and I've been mentioning the Mediterranean diet quite a bit. It seems to be good for whatever ails you. It's good for perhaps Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, and if you listened to last week's episode, fatty liver disease. Who knew we all had fatty livers? And it's also good for diabetes and obesity. By the way, I did a 4-episode series on the best diet for Alzheimer's disease, and I'll put the links on the show notes. I did episodes on preventing heart disease as well, and I'll put those episode links in the show notes. And diabetes, ditto for that. Now I imagine you can guess that I'm going to say the Mediterranean diet is a good bet all around if you want to prevent these chronic diseases. And that's where I'm going. I also did an episode on the CHIP dietary plan, which stands for Complete Health Improvement Project. This includes a plant-strong diet, based on the Mediterranean diet with additional activities, community involvement, and psychological support. So once again, the Mediterranean diet. So how do we translate these general dietary guidelines to breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Today I'm going to update an episode I did about a year ago and go over specific details about this eating plan and overall lifestyle. And before I forget to say this, part of the Mediterranean lifestyle is, of course, enjoying what you're eating. First of all, when we in the nutrition biz think Mediterranean, we think of it again as a lifestyle and not so much a food group thing. Most people think of the Greeks when they think Mediterranean food, but I think the Italians have a similar approach to eating. What they have in common is their love of food, pure and simple. They love the art of cooking, they breathe in the aroma of the food, they enjoy what they're eating, as I've said, and they are probably not counting calories. Certainly not as much as we do. Eating is a social occasion. The more people at the table, the better. Hopefully they're having a good time, and I'm going to guess they may not have their heads plunged into their cell phones. Now some may not. But this is the feeling that we get when we think about the Mediterranean diet. So if they're doing all this eating, they must be a lot fatter than us, right? No, actually, they're not. It's only countries like England that have picked up on our fast food ways and are also picking up the pounds. Not only do they have less obesity in the Mediterranean countries, but they also have less chronic disease and sometimes age slower than we do. So what's up with that? As I just mentioned, the lifestyle around the Mediterranean diet is based on the theory that people should enjoy the food they're eating, rather than thinking about what foods to avoid. The foods are creative, there's a lot of variety. Maybe they eat foods in season, which makes them fresher and tastier. And yes, I know some of these countries have very warm climates and a long growing season. But I think in the future we'll be able to use technology to extend growing seasons and maybe grow local food in a somewhat indoorsy type environment. So I think that's coming. Maybe the goal is to have the making of the food part of the whole pleasure package. So let's start with the general principles of this Mediterranean diet. If I'm recommending the Mediterranean diet to avoid Alzheimer's disease, you may have guessed that it's a plant-based diet. And it is. But that doesn't mean only plants, and we'll get to that in a minute. There's also fish, meat, cheese, yogurt, and eggs. The emphasis is on a variety of foods, rather than the same food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. Portions are generally smaller, especially the meat, chicken, and fish. If we look at this in terms of the old food pyramid, then the bottom or widest part will be the fruits and vegetables, nuts and beans, lentils, minimally processed grains, and olive oil. We don't use the food pyramid anymore. It's basically more of a pie chart, but you get the picture. My father comes from a large Italian family. His parents actually grew up in Abruzzi, which is a region around the ankle of the boot. I remember him saying that they use fruit for dessert, and they filled up on seasonal vegetables. For him, entertaining family meant that there was a bowl of nuts in every room. He's 96 now, and there's still a bowl of nuts in every room. We had dinner at my parents' house. By the way, my mother is 93, and she's still healthy as well. So we get into the house, and sure enough, there's 3 bowls of nuts in the TV room. So for this diet, the eat liberally portion of the pyramid or pie chart are the fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, lentils, healthy grains, and olive oil. For the protein part of the plate, we have fish, both white fish and shellfish, generally about 2 to 3 times per week. For the white fish, they often eat cod, tilapia, salmon. The Portuguese and Italians like their sardines and anchovies. Fish stews are also popular in Spain and Italy. I have a version of zuppa de pesca that I do, and it's basically a fish stew with, of course, lots of vegetables. I use red onions, shallots, carrots, tomatoes, garlic, and baby spinach. For the fish, I generally use shrimp or scallops. When the Mediterranean people eat chicken, it's usually part of something like a stir-fry with vegetables and a healthy grain. Meat in the Mediterranean is often served in smaller amounts, usually to enhance the flavor of a dish with vegetables and grains. It's not the centerpiece of a 3-spot meal, like the meat, potato, vegetable in the old TV dinners we had when we were kids. I don't know if it's true as much now, but in the old days, the meat came from local grazing animals. And in many of these dishes, we can replace meat with beans, nuts, and seeds. Mediterraneans drink wine or water with their meals. Sweetened fruit juice drinks are just plain silly. Hawaiian fruit punch is not a fruit, it's not punch, it's not from Hawaii, so what's up with that? Now, the yogurt and cheese. Both are enjoyed by the Mediterraneans, but again the portion sizes may be smaller than ours. and the yogurt may or may not be pre-sweetened. They certainly enjoy their eggs. An example might be something like a frittata, where the eggs are mixed with vegetables and cooked in an olive oil. Herbs and spices enhance the flavor, complexity, and maybe they can reduce the need for salt. Mediterranean people like their rosemary, thyme, basil, parsley, oregano. As far as the smallest part of the pyramid or pie plate, this is the eat only occasional category. And here is the cookies, chips, cake, ice cream, and donuts. So the theory of the Mediterranean diet is that healthy grains, vegetables, nuts, beans, and seeds are the centerpiece of the meal. Vegetables may account for half of the dinner plate. Fruits can be seen on the dessert table. And most of all, enjoy what you're eating, for goodness sake. So I'm thinking, let's approach this like an if X then Y scenario. Number 1. If spaghetti and meatballs, then pasta primavera. I think maybe the best way for Americans to switch from the meat, potato, and vegetable to the Mediterranean diet might be to think about stir-fry recipes. Pasta primavera is basically mixed vegetables in a white wine sauce with olive oil over thin pasta. Pasta primavera basically means any vegetable combination that works for you. Italians like to use vegetables like zucchini, onions, carrots, garlic, and peppers. You can use red pepper flakes to kick it up a notch. And of course you can substitute with almost any pasta. Then you add chicken or shrimp if you like. Fresh basil, of course. Finito. Now, number 2. If corn dogs, then falafel. I realize this is a bit of a stretch, but falafel is good if you happen to like that kind of thing. And if you don't like the way somebody else makes it, just make your own version. That's basically me because I'm fussier than my cat, I think. Now, number 3. If a fisherman's platter, then zuppa de pesca. Now, when you're making the zuppa de pesca, there's 2 things to remember. Don't overcook the seafood, and you can pretty much substitute any vegetable you like. Number 4. If a beef burrito, then a bean and cheese burrito. Black beans or pinto beans may sound like you're building a Mexican dish, but so what? You can use any type of bean you like. To fill up the burrito, cut up an entire green pepper in strips, maybe half an onion, use a hot pepper of your choosing, and saute it all before adding the beans. To hold it all together, you can add shredded cheese. Another trick to hold together the burrito ingredients is to make your own refried beans. Just saute onion, pepper, garlic, throw in a fresh hot pepper or cayenne pepper, add the beans, sprinkle with salt and pepper, and put it all in a blender or a processor. Add that to your burrito mixture, and there you go. Number 5. If a poo-poo platter, then chicken chow mein. I've got a couple recipes for both chicken chow mein and vegan chow mein with peanuts. I'll give you the links to them in the show notes. You can get organic udon noodles from Amazon, and they're not very expensive at all. I also have recipes for either shrimp or peanut egg rolls that are pan-fried, and they're really good. I'll throw in links to those as well. Number 6. If corn chips and salsa, then homemade pita bread with hummus or baba ganoush, which is basically an eggplant dip. Think you can't make any of those things all by yourself? I dare you. Alright, homemade pita bread might be a lot to take on, but buy the pita bread and make yourself some dip. Just Google Mediterranean dips, and away you go. And I'll throw in a link to the hummus with roasted red peppers that I do. If cookies, then granola. Granola actually has a lot of Mediterranean ingredients. Oatmeal is always a good start. By the way, when I'm ranking grains for overall healthiness, I hope that's a word, oatmeal is at the top of my list. The next ingredient is almonds when you're making granola. Obviously, a big nut. Then there's dates, sunflower seeds, if you like them, honey, and coconut flakes. You get the picture. And granola is great for breakfast as well as dessert, especially if you need something fast in the morning. If you're not a crunchy granola type of person, but want to get away from the Danish and muffins, try making popovers. Ina Garden has a great recipe that's only 5 ingredients. There's no sugar in it and only about 1.5 tablespoons of flour per popover. So there you have it, the general picture of the Mediterranean diet. The goal is to approach the Mediterranean mindset from the perspective of abundance rather than scarcity or deprivation. This means adding more whole foods, but certainly add foods that you enjoy eating. And it may more naturally shift the proportion of your plate to slightly less meat, a lot less processed foods, and more healthy and tasty other foods. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You can find me on my contact page, which is on my website, which is healingoutsidethebox.com. Now that's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.